In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. We had started reading the prophetic saying number 350 in the authentic book of Imam Muslim. And this is basically the second long narration of this prophetic saying that details what happens on the Day of Judgment. The first narration was by Abu Hurairah. Second is by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, and it has more details as we have already seen compared to the narration of Abu Hurairah. May Allah be pleased with him. As you can see, the first part that takes place in the Day of Judgment is that people who associated other gods with Allah really do not stand any chance, because this is a matter that has been made extremely clear in all revelations that Allah has sent down. This is the most prominent theme of all the books of Allah, even till this day. If you read in the previous scriptures, the Torah, even the New Testament as well, the Old Testament, New Testament, you can see very clearly that there's emphasis on the oneness of Allah and that no one else deserves to be worshipped. So no one who has received any even bits and pieces of revelation has an excuse to fall into polytheism and association with Allah. And that is why initially the first stage on the Day of Judgment, that all these people who worshipped other gods with Allah or aside from Allah, whether they associated or chose other gods and forgot about Allah, they don't stand a chance. Immediately the first thing that happens is that they follow their false deities and they are rushed to the fire of hell. So basically this, when you read about the verse such as وَلَا يُسْأَلُ عَنْ ذُنُوبِهِمُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ, that the criminals, meaning criminals in the sight of Allah, will not be questioned about their evil deeds, because the most evil deed is to associate another God with Allah. So if that is the case, really there's no point in asking them, oh, what did you do this on that day? Did you do that on this day? Already they don't stand a chance, and this is a sin that Allah will never forgive anyhow. So that's why we have a saying in Arabic, لَيْسَ بَعْدَ الْكُفْرِ ذَنْبٍ. There's no sin greater than polytheism and association with Allah, and that's known from many verses and many hadiths. So, and even people of the book who have deviated from the original monotheistic message and chose to worship a human being, for instance, those as well will also be gathered with other people who worship maybe idols or worshipped stones or trees or animals, stars, moon. They all follow these deities and they take them to the fire of hell. Then the hadith says, حتى إذا لم يبق إلا من كان يعبد الله تعالى من بر وفاجر أتاهم رب العالمين سبحانه وتعالى في أدنى صورة من التي رأوه فيها. Then who is left is basically those people who used to worship Allah, whether they were righteous or not righteous, but at least that point of unification, the oneness of Allah, they had no problem with, because there's many people who affirm the oneness of Allah, but still they do not follow the commandments. And as you can see earlier in the hadith, it says لم يبق إلا من كان يعبد الله من بر وفاجر وغبر أهل الكتاب وغبر أهل الكتاب. Also people of the book who remained on the original message. All these people will still, those are the people who will stand a chance on the Day of Judgment. So Allah will come to the believers who affirmed His oneness in an image that is not like the image they saw Him. في أدنى صورة من التي رأوه فيها, which means they had already seen Allah before that on the Day of Judgment, because this seeing Allah will not happen in this life. اعلموا أنكم لن تروا ربكم حتى تموتوا. Know very firmly that you will never see your Lord unless you die, or until or unless you die. So they have seen him before. Was somebody here when we talked about when they saw Allah? Was somebody here? We mentioned that. Huh? Huh? No, before that. This is before Jannah. This is all before entering paradise. Huh? We talked that Allah initially will talk to the believers about their deeds. ليس منكم أحد إلا وسيكلمه ربه ليس بينه وبينه ترجمان ولا حجاب. There's not a single one of you except that his Lord will talk to him directly without any interpreter or a barrier between him and Allah. So they have seen Allah before, and that is why when they are tested here that that Allah brings them, that Allah comes to them, أتاهم رب العالمين. Allah Himself comes to them in an image different from what they had seen before. قال فماذا تنتظرون قال فماذا تنتظرون تتبع كل أمة ما كانت تعبد قالوا يا ربنا فارقنا الناس في الدنيا أفقر ما كنا إليهم ولم نصاحبهم فيقول أنا ربكم فيقولون نعوذ بالله منك لا نشرك بالله شيئا مرتين أو ثلاثا حتى إن بعضهم لا يكاد أن ينقلب فيقول هل بينكم وبينه آية فتعرفونه بها. Anyhow, so they say, no, we will not follow you because you are not our God whom we used to worship or whom we had seen before. You follow? And then they say that we, in the previous life, we did not associate, like we did not follow the masses, although we were in need of them, we were in need of other people, but we had a harder life in this life because we insisted on worshiping only the one God. So here we will not also budge, we will not leave our place until we see our Lord, and He is the only one we will follow. Anyhow, and then they say, Na'udhu billahi mink, we seek refuge with Allah from you. They say this twice or three times. Then he says to them, is there a sign between you and him? فيقولون نعم فيكشف عن ساق فلا يبقى من كان يسجد لله من تلقاء نفسه إلا أذن الله له بالسجود ولا يبقى من كان يسجد اتقاء ورياء إلا جعل الله ظهره طبقة واحدة كلما أراد أن يسجد خر على قفاه ثم يرفعون رؤوسهم وقد تحول في صورته التي رأوه فيها أول مرة فقال أنا ربكم فيقولون أنت ربنا ثم يضرب الجسر على جهنم. This is a more difficult part that comes because basically the hadith says يكشف عن ساق, which means that this statement can have more than one meaning. يكشف عن ساق, it's a statement that Arabs sometimes used to indicate that something became difficult or stressful. A situation became stressful. كشفت الحرب عن ساقها. They used to say that. That's the tafsir Ibn Abbas, by the way, which means that the war has intensified. كشفت الحرب عن ساقها. يكشف عن ساق also means literally, if you want to take it literally, means that exposing the leg. The leg is called saq, by the way. This is called saq. Exposing the leg. يكشف عن ساق. Also, this statement can mean exposing the leg. Also, يكشف عن ساق could mean relief. Could mean actually something getting more stressful, and it could also mean relief after stress. Could mean this or that. So basically, the hadith says this will happen. So some people who understand these ahadith literally will say that this saq refers to Allah Himself. Okay, just like we say that Allah, attributed al-wajh, attributed to Himself a face, attributed al-ayn, eye, attributed yad, hand, attributed saq means leg, but we just cannot comprehend or imagine what this actually means. We just know the basic meaning of what that would mean in a human being, for instance, but we cannot compare a human being, we cannot compare Allah to a human being. So some scholars understood that it became stressful, or Allah, something happened that caused stress or caused relief of stress, and then they made sujood, or they were asked to make sujood, and they made sujood to Allah. They actually prostrated to Allah. Only the ones who were true believers could make actual prostration, while the people who used to be hypocrites or used to pray just to show off for the people, they are not able to make sujood. And this is mentioned in the Quran. يوم يكشف عن ساق ويدعون إلى السجود فلا يستطيعون خاشعة أبصارهم ترهقهم ذلة وقد كانوا يدعون إلى السجود وهم سالمون. So it's mentioned in the Quran that this event will happen. يكشف عن ساق means that either Allah will reveal to them part of Him, or that the situation in the Day of Judgment will become stressful, so they will make sujood to Allah, or they are relieved from the stress and they will make sujood to Allah. But not everyone can make sujood, because this is the second kind of filtration. The first filtration is that those who worshipped other gods are taken to the fire of hell. But then who are left behind are those who claimed to worship only Allah. And so this is the second kind of filtration, so that Allah differentiates between those who worshipped Him sincerely and those who pretended to worship Him and were actually hypocrites, or were just doing that to please the people rather than to please Allah, or they were not sincere to Allah. So they try to prostrate those other people, and they are not. Basically, it says that their back will become like one solid plate, and they are not able to. Whenever they try, they will actually fall backwards. It's in the Quran. You can this surah al-Qalam, the Noon wal Qalam ma yasturun. At the end of that surah, you can go back to it and read those verses. يوم يكشف عن ساق ويدعون إلى السجود. It says that very clearly. So this hadith explains that. So once they make that prostration, then they raise their head. Then that is when they see Allah in the image that they are familiar with. تحول في صورته التي رأوه فيها أول مرة فقال أنا ربكم فيقولون أنت ربنا. That is when they say, yes, you are our Lord. ثم يضرب الجسر على جهنم وتحل الشفاعة. That is when the bridge, الصراط, is like a bridge is placed on top of the pit of the fire of hell, and that is when also intercession will be permitted. Allah permits the angels and the prophets and the righteous people to start making intercession. But وَيَقُولُونَ اللَّهُمَّ سَلِّمْ سَلِّمْ. Basically, we read in the previous hadith that the only people who are capable of speaking at the time are the prophets. وَدَعْوَاهُمْ اللَّهُمَّ سَلِّمْ سَلِّمْ. Oh Allah, protect. Oh Allah, make it easy. Or Allah, bring safety. That is the meaning. Sallim, sallim. Safety, peace, protection. So that's they're all making invocation to Allah to bring on safety. قِيلَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَمَا الْجِسْرِ. Then the messenger was asked, what is this al-jisr? What is this bridge that you are talking about? قال ضحض مزلة فيها خطاطيف وكلاليب وحسك تكون بنجد فيها شويكة يقال لها السعدان. Just we read this in the previous hadith. He says this is a very slippery bridge that is placed on top of Jahannam. And out of Jahannam comes these hooks that we talked about before, and شوك السعدان. This plant that's called Sa'dan, تكون بنجد. It is a plant that grows in the desert of Najd, which is the eastern part of Arabia. Even in the previous hadith, the messenger asked them, do you know what a Sa'dan is? And they said, yes, we know what Sa'dan. Then he said, this is basically, these hooks are like it. In the previous hadith, he says to them, غير أنه لا يعظم قدر عظمها إلا الله. But no one can imagine how enormous these hooks are except Allah. So remember what we read about these hooks. Those hooks are basically snatching certain people because of certain crimes that they committed in this life. And this talks about the believers here, because already the total disbelievers will have been taken to the fire of hell, and the hypocrites as well did not pass this second stage when they were asked to make prostration. Here the believers start crossing, but of course, and before they can get to paradise, not all believers are righteous. So those believers who were committing lots of evil deeds or committed crimes in this life, that is where there is reckoning for this. Those hooks snatch them. Either they injure them, or they actually take them into the fire of hell for some punishment in the fire of hell before they are allowed to come out from the fire of hell. So we'll continue this hadith in next class, inshallah.